Welcome to another Saturday morning art clinic online. We are here with a bunch of really great artists today. So thank you all for coming to join us. I'm going to introduce our host today, Claudia Aziza Gibson-Hunter, who has been actually one of the greatest contributors that I can uh, for the art clinic online, bringing us a lot of really cool names and a lot of really great perspectives on the DC art scene. And I encourage you to go back and take a look at her art talk because it was one of my favorites, and also so good that I invited her to be part of the Abstract Art Forum, so you can follow up and more of Aziza's work in the Abstract Art Forum. But without further ado, I will pass the torch to Aziza so she can introduce our artist today.
Oh, well, first, I'd like to thank Jordan and Mariana again for opening this whole another world to me and allowing me to invite some of the fabulous artists that we have here in Washington, D.C., of whom Adjoa Burrowes is one. And Adjoa, I met Adjoa when she was in undergraduate school at Howard University, and she was just a standout. I was just so amazed by her focus, by the care that she put into her work, and her ability to express her work not only through her visual but through her writing, and how she was in had the ability to integrate them. And lo and behold, what I saw was real because she became an author, an illustrator, um, as well as a well, very very skilled printmaker and painter, illustrator. So she has worked across a whole swath of different media and different forms of being an artist, because she's also been on the commercial side with package design and um, and in the print area. So Adjoa is a formidable artist. One other thing about her that I think is so wonderful is that she works with collectives. And this is something that that is dear to my heart. And over the years has been a part of, I'm going to list some of them: SABA, National Conference of Artists, um, let me see, BADC, Black Artists of DC, Dandelion, Black Women Artists Collective, which is a wonderful collective that's here in DC. And women of a, always, women of a give
Determined.
undetermined age. I love that. So she's a part of all of these different collectives, and I'm a part of some of them. And she has brought so much to those collectives, and I can see that her work also has been enhanced by that. So I'm not going to run my mouth anymore. I'm going to let's get to Adjoa so that you can hear and see her work. And welcome, Adjoa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aziza.
Mhm.
I appreciate those kind words. And thank you, Jordan and Mariana, for allowing me to be a part of the program. I really appreciate it. I am going to start by sharing my screen. I was born in Chicago, and that was a big deal for me. Chicago is an amazing place, and it proved to be a wonderful beginning for me as a creative person. Um, there are so many cultural institutions, important institutions that I had access to as a young person. And then, from the Southside Community Arts Center, which I have pictured here, one of the oldest, and actually it's the longest continuously running art institution from the WPA era. And actually this year, they're celebrating their 85th, believe it or not, anniversary. And we also had the DuSable Museum of African American History. And both of those proved to be really, really important to me in my early development as an artist. At the Southside Community Arts Center, I was exposed to so many professional artists who are really made their mark on the art scene, contemporary art scene in America. I was recruited by one of the artists, Jeff Donaldson, who at the time I enrolled at Howard, he was the chair, which takes me to the second slide. Chicago, of course, loomed big in my development as an artist, as well as Howard. And I always say that Howard, I went to Howard during its heyday, right? During the 70s. We had these dynamic artists. If you can see them, I found this. Some of them are obscured on my screen, but we had James Well, who was a really well-known printmaker. We had Lois Malu Jones, the painter, wonderful painter from Boston. We had Winston Kennedy, who headed the art department. We had the Ethiopian artist, painter Skunder. We had Tritovia Benjamin, who was an art historian, Jeff Donaldson, who was the chair of the department at that time. So it just really shaped me and nurtured me as an artist during that period. And these are some of my earliest prints. These were from the 70s, during the time I was at Howard. And on the left is a lithograph called In Search of a Quiet Place. And I so fell in love with printmaking, and I majored in printmaking. And I think it was the physicality of it that attracted me. For some reason, I'm attracted to the very difficult processes. On the right is a print, an etching. And another really great thing about Howard was that we also were exposed to different experimental techniques in printmaking. So this was a piece on the right using acetone on plexi. So that's how I was able to achieve those textural effects. And this piece is in the collection at the Southside Community Arts Center. But mostly I wanted to talk about in this presentation my earliest exposure and interest in the three-dimensional aspect of working with my work. Not only purely sculptural, but also as it relates to my prints. So these were some pieces that I did in 2015 that were inspired by a class that I took at the Corcoran, because I went to Corcoran 2013 through 15. And there's a class, it was like, it wasn't called mixed media, but it was just like, I can't think of the name of it. It's gonna drive me nuts. I'll probably think of it later. But where we were encouraged to think critically and deeply about objects, right? And so I remember one of the assignments was that you had to create a sculpture that would sit in the palm of your hand that wouldn't involve any kind of adhesive. So we couldn't use glue, we couldn't use any kind of tapes or string, but you had to make this creation just from using the materials that you had. So I remember the teacher, her name was Judy Sutherland. She dumped a trash can in the middle of the room and said, pick your objects and get busy. So this kind of grew out of that. But it was during this time that I fell in love with cardboard, because I feel like it is so loaded with meaning, right? It relates to the fact that cardboard boxes hold precious things, that it relates to transition and the moving of your possessions when you move. It relates to aspects of our society, in particular, those that are home insecure, where it may be just a sheet of cardboard that protects you from the elements when you're sleeping outdoors. And most of the cardboard pieces I did were made from regular corrugated boxes that didn't have any kind of pigment. And at that time, it was totally satisfactory to me because I feel like there was enough interest for me in the construction of the boxes, the corrugated section of the box or the segment, and then you had different colorations depending on the box that you got, because all boxes are not created equal. There are boxes that are really cheaply made that they don't have that deep, rich tan color that I really loved. And then after a while, I started working with boxes that had pigment already printed on them. And this particular one was made from Nike shoe boxes. And at that point, I was really obsessed with this orange color. And I found shoe stores all in my neighborhood, and I would go in weekly to get my orange Nike boxes, and they would crack up when I come in, and they're like, "Oh my God, here comes this artist, y'all! Get the the shoe boxes for her." And I continued with my plan to create these sculptures without any kind of adhesive or attachment. I later started doing wall pieces, and these were actually made from shoe boxes as well, that had this beautiful blue and this lovely green that I really liked. So I'm cutting and I'm tearing to create these really vertical forms. And after a while, it just started to feel like I was excavating. I am taking something and creating something new from it. So it's only a hint of its former life as a shoebox, right? And sometimes weaving the different segments. Again, this was a shoebox, and they just started looking like skeletons. Like if this was the only thing that was left in, say, 200 or 300 years, if someone came from another planet, what would this say about our society? And, one of the things that interested me also is the connection to consumerism and our mass consumption. And in this society, it's like a throwaway society. You use something and you move on to the next thing. Whereas in other societies, things that are older, they have meaning and reverence. I went on to, this was a floral box. I started photographing them, and the expression is really a lot different. But this doesn't look so three-dimensional, but it is. It's just the angle. I'm shooting it straight on. And then with photography, it started looking like not cardboard or paper. It started looking like metal. It almost looked like gold or bronze to me. So that intrigued me and helped me to continue with this piece, with this whole series. After that, I started incorporating my print work into the cardboard. So in this piece, this was done in 2018, and at the Smith Center, they had a series of exhibitions. And again, I was able to use two things that I love, printmaking and cardboard, to create this expression. And also I introduced another material, metal or aluminum. And continuing with these long vertical pieces, it's almost like I felt like I was drawing, but instead of using a pencil, I am using my scissors to create this line work and incorporating metal in this piece on the right, incorporating my print work here. So the piece on the right, it has a monotype mounted on wood, and then other prints that have been cut out and attached to this form. Working more with my prints, mounted, and the dangling cutout prints underneath. And these two were titled like Celestial Flight, because after a while they started, the pieces looked like they wanted to go somewhere. The piece on the right looked like the wings of a bird or something. So I enjoyed the animation of these pieces. And then moving on from there, I started doing painting on paper. And painting on flat paper was not satisfying enough for me. And I felt like I needed to break out of that, break out of the rectangular or square form. So this was created during the pandemic when, all hell broke loose, right, in society. And there's a lot of pressure put on Black people. There were a lot of police involved violence and killing. And I felt like I needed to say something. And so I created this piece as like a monument to Black people's resilience at that time, that in spite of all that was going on, all that was being done to us, that we could still stand strong. And so I named it Say It Loud after the James Brown piece, Say It Loud. And I was intrigued and excited about the fact that this piece, because it's sculpture, that it could be viewed in the round. Other pieces that were wall hung related to some experiences I had when I traveled to Africa. And that was during the time that I was at Howard. And I was so excited to get a fellowship. And this was in 77. And I could go any place I wanted to in the world. And I chose to go to Africa. And that was because at that time I was working on this contemporary African art exhibit at Howard under Kojo Fosu Baden, the African art history professor there. And there were 4 artists in the exhibition that I was interested in visiting. And with the help of my professor, we worked out the schedule. So one of the places I went was Nigeria. And I was able to work with Bruce Onogbapeya, who is a printmaker, a very well-known printmaker. As a matter of fact, last year he had an exhibit at the African Art Museum. But this piece is called Osogbo Glimpse, because it kind of related to the colors and the music and the energy, the rhythm of contemporary life in Nigeria. So that's why I called it that. And I love the fact that it was 3-dimensional, that it could hang on the wall, and it looks like it could just fly away at any moment. And I have my vertical pieces, which have become a part of my artistic vocabulary at this point, my visual language. The other piece, the piece on the right, is called Khartoum by Day. And that was, Khartoum is one of the cities in Sudan. And it was inspired by, again, the colors and the energy in that city, even though it was a very different energy than in Nigeria. Yet and still, it inspired these kind of colors in me. Another piece that was inspired by my travels as a student in Africa. This one's called Rhythm of the Nile. And when I was in Sudan, just remembering wading in the Nile with my feet, it was quite an intensive experience. So I wanted to capture that in this piece. So the cutout painted strips simulating the water, the rhythm of the water. So that was what my objective was in this piece. And here comes this cardboard again. It keeps on showing up because I have a very special relationship with it. And I have my dangling strips. I have the painting on paper. I have the cutout pieces collaged on top of the paintings, because collage was a big part of my practice earlier, and it still comes in. I enjoyed working with wire and other materials, and I incorporated that as well into the work. And on the right is a zoom of the piece. And back to my printmaking, I always kind of gravitated toward experimental processes. And with these were created on either sheets of plastic that I am painting on top of with ink and transferring it to paper. So I have cut out stencils, not plexi, but plastic stencils that I'm working with. I'm painting directly, and I like that. I never considered myself a painter, but I like that I could get these painterly effects through printmaking. I'm interested in showing like the energy of specific situations. This was called, I did a whole series called Changing Current, and it was in 2017, before the pandemic. But you know, there was this feel that there's some things that are going on in society. It's a lot of turmoil, and I wanted to reflect that in some of these pieces. So the vocabulary that I'm creating with the line work and the shapes and the colors, creating this movement and energy. I was fortunate to have some residencies at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, and a lot of my exploration happened there because I had the space and the walls and the time. It was great. On the left, you can see I was cutting out and painting on top of vellum, cutting those things out and attaching them to other pieces. And then comes, I was invited to show in this invitational, Mary B. Howard Invitational at Tephra Institute of Contemporary Art in Virginia. And the theme was between a rock and a soft place. And it explored issues of rest and mostly rest. And what does that mean in society? Who gets to rest? Under what circumstances do you get to rest? And there was this movement. I can't think of the name of it. It was a book. Aziza, do you remember? It was this book about rest. And then, okay, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I don't remember the title of the book, but I do know that among Black women, there's a tremendous movement around the issue of rest.
Yes, yes. So what I was thinking at that time was, how am I going to approach this? I had this interest in local gardeners. I had this interest in land as it relates to Black people, and the whole legacy of Black people and their relationship to farming and the land. So I decided after I had interviewed some local gardeners in my community about their garden and what that meant to them. And I found that gardens and the whole act of gardening relates to community and culture. What you grow a lot of times is based on what you eat. And that relates, of course, to your culture. So I also, many of them talked about how and this was during the pandemic, how the garden was a place of restoration for them. And I wanted to explore that. So my intention in this piece was to create this enclosure that would give you that feeling of rest and restoration. And I used this tomato cage to bolster it up. And these are some of the three of the pieces in my installation. I have this piece on the left called Earth, I Thank You. And that was based on a poem by this woman named Anne Spencer, who is or was a gardener, activist, a librarian, and one of the artists of the Harlem Renaissance. And she had a poem entitled that I was inspired by. And this is another view of the pieces, my pieces in the exhibit. On the left, you'll see these monotypes that I made from plant matter that some of the gardeners gave me. And this was the back. The dark green on the right is the back of Earth, I Thank You. It was a two-sided piece, and it was kind of neat because it rotated as people walked by. And a blow-up of some of the monotypes that I did. And it was really cool because the women gave me plants and herbs from their garden, and I was able to print them using a layered technique. And I continue to use my dangling forms to kind of jump outside of the box and create more dimensionality in my work. And these two pieces, Entangled and Rooted, were in an exhibition, a recent solo exhibition I did in December at Hilyer. And it was called Earth Sanctuary, that had its roots in the work that I did at Tephra a couple of years ago. And of course, here's my dangling pieces that show up in another form. And this is called Blossom Again. And it's an artist book that I was commissioned to do for the National Museum of Women in the Arts after they reopened after an 8-year renovation. So Blossom Again, and I have some notes about that. And it's reimagined from a children's book, actually, that I wrote and illustrated like in 2000. And that book centered on a grandmother and her grandchild through the seasons. And the grandmother eventually passes away. And it's these natural things in the garden that remind the child of the grandmother. But it also, this piece seeks to create this conversation between the book and the work of Alma Thomas. And I was so thrilled that when this work was installed, my work was installed, it was installed across from one of Alma Thomas's pieces at the Women's Museum. And when the curator sent me it, I thought, oh my goodness, it was such an honor for me because I admired her for such a long time. And the work, many of her works reference the natural world and her garden. So I thought it was such a perfect match. This is some of the next few slides. They're just our pieces from the show. I had paintings, I had the installation, I had paintings, an installation, prints, and the sculpture. There's some sculptural pieces from Tephra that were included in the show because I wanted to show the history of, the whole concept. So this one is called The Garden of My Familiar, and this is acrylic ink on paper. And many of the works were like imagined landscapes. This is what a garden could possibly look like in the future. These pieces were small paintings, I'm trying to think. I can't even remember what I call them. But little blocks of color. And I was so excited about the color play in these. And I wanted them to simulate like the color and the energy in the garden. I wanted to give you the name. Yeah, they're called Overgrowth. And it was a series of 4. Another one of them, Imagined Landscapes. And this was a print um, using, they were oil-based inks on acrylic. And then I would rub into the surface of the work and then eventually print it. Some other prints, and the one on the left was created using, again, plant matter from the garden. And on the right, an Imagined Landscape, another monotype. And this piece, this was a painting done with acrylic inks and acrylic paint. And that was a piece that I had exhibited at Kramer, American University, Katzen, during the Women Artists of the DMV show. And again, you know, I wanted to have a feel of the vibrancy of the garden, and for people to be able to look into it and imagine what a future garden experience would look like. Okay, so that's the end of the slides.
These are absolutely fantastic. I don't understand why you don't consider yourself a painter because you're both. You could be a mixed media artist, painter, installation. These are, I mean, it's just such a wide breadth of work. I had some questions about when you're doing the sculptural pieces. I know early on when you were working with cardboard, you were kind of thinking about the ideas of not having them like adhesives or kind of more not glued together. Does that continue all the way through, even into like some of like the book piece, for instance? It looked like it was kind of more structured, like built there, combined. I don't know. It's glued. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to continue with that piece for the museum because that one was a little different. The paper was different. It was lighter and it wouldn't hold up the same way as the cardboard would. So I was forced to use adhesive to put it together, you know. But I was okay with that because things do change and, you know, you have to work according to the circumstances that you have, you know.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I was thinking about, I imagine they have to be stored and then brought out again, and you have to kind of restage them and recompose them. Do you find that that's a good thing that sometimes the second time around where the piece is presented, that you can actually kind of form it into something new or better?
Well, with the cardboard pieces, yeah, they morphed into sometimes into other shapes and forms, and I was fine with that, you know. And I embrace the ephemerality even of those cardboard pieces because they don't live forever, and I was able to embrace that. As a matter of fact, one of the pieces it was it was about 5 feet high and probably like maybe 7 feet wide that I had at the Kramer Gallery during that time in 2015. And the show lasted for quite some time. I think it was 2 months or something. And I would go there almost every other week. And it changed. It kind of dropped at some point. I was like, what is going on? And I started videotaping it and photographing it. And to me, it just added another element to the work, which was exciting to me. And at the end, I ended up taking that piece home and I left it out in the backyard and it rained. And I was like, okay. But, you know, I was okay with that because it was an ephemeral piece, you know.
And it seems very fitting that you're kind of transition towards more garden floral kind of things. And that idea of like, I remember studying Van Gogh and he was like doing paintings of flowers, and has kind of like a life cycle in itself, where you have the bud and the flower, and it's beautiful, most beautiful things, and then it starts to wilt and it goes back into the earth, and it kind of feels in the same way that's kind of ephemeral, like the way cardboard behaves. It's felt like a really seamless transition.
Hmm.
So I don't know, it wasn't really a question. I was, wow, that's so cool.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a cycle. It's definitely a cycle. And it looks like Schroeder, Cherry, he raised his hand.
Yeah, I had a question for you, Adjoa. We were talking
Mhm.
about the cardboard. What challenges have you had with people looking at your work, knowing that cardboard is such a humble material, and like you said, it doesn't last long. So, what challenges have you had with people who might want to collect your piece, but knowing that cardboard is what it is?
Well, there's ways that you can treat it to make it more archival. Um, I went to a session once. It was a webinar or something with these conservators and everything. And they said of course, there's materials that conservators love, and there's materials that they hate. Cardboard was one of the ones that they hated, but they said they can't stop artists from doing that. I mean, I've seen some pieces that Picasso made and some other artists, and they still live. I mean, there's ways to preserve it. It's not easy, but there are ways. Yeah.
Toulouse-Lautrec notoriously worked on cardboard in museums. They still have the pieces, but they grumble.
Yes, yes, yes. And one of my most admired artists, Jeff Donaldson. I think Aziza, you um, turned my attention to a piece that he did with cardboard, and
Beautiful
it
work with
still lives
cardboard.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, he had a whole
50
series
years
where he
later. Uh-huh.
Donaldson had a whole series where he just cut into the cardboard, and at one point he cut so that you could see the different layers of the corrugated board.
Yes, yes, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Ad,
Um,
Adjoa, this is Mariana. Do you ever code it? This is just glorious, really wonderful.
thank you.
I love prints and monoprints. I don't think they deserve they deserve more attention than they get.
Yeah.
And I love your floral and garden agricultural, I would say, pieces. Do you ever coat it with matte medium or with the gloss medium or something like that to preserve it for exhibits, for example, or collectors?
Yeah, yeah. Well, for the earlier pieces, I didn't because I just wasn't really that concerned about that. But the later pieces, I haven't done any large pieces with just cardboard in a long time. If I do use cardboard, I do coat it or spray it with something that keeps it. Yeah, makes it more archival. I think I showed at least one piece that showed, the addition of it because I do love it a lot. Um, and I think you can coat it and spray it to make it more sustainable.
And and would you mind telling us why you call some pieces monotypes as opposed to monoprints? Or it's the age-old question. I don't know what the difference really is.
Yeah, well, from my understanding, a monoprint has an element in it that is repeated, and that's what makes it a monoprint,
Ah,
right? Because some people will have an
right.
etching,
And they
um,
print the
yes,
same etching or similar.
yeah,
Mhm.
and
I
they
see.
may print it on something else, but they have that one element, that one etching, um, like a zinc made from a zinc plate that's used consistently in each of those prints. So that's a monoprint. And a monotype, there's nothing that repeats. So it's truly like one of a kind.
Right. So you tend to use the word monotype with the floral and things that just you couldn't retrieve and
Right.
make another copy.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you
Mhm.
so much. They're glorious.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Mhm. But
Other
like
questions? Yeah,
in
sorry.
that work, the Earth Sanctuary work, my primary objective was to pay homage to African American gardeners, and particularly the Ann Spencer that I mentioned. because a lot of times, like, we do not get our due in history. And she was such an incredible woman. And there's not a lot of people don't know about her. I mean, I discovered her very serendipitously on a postage stamp. I think it was in 2020 when it came out. And I said, why don't I know this person's name? And when I dug deeper, I realized that she was affiliated with the Harlem Renaissance, and she was a major thinker and intellectual of her day. And her life intersected with a lot of people that we recognize from the Harlem Renaissance, right? Zora Neale Hurston, and others. And she was such a bright light to the creative community. And I just
Could you repeat her name? I didn't get it.
Anne
Anne
Spencer.
Spencer, thank you. And she was a poet as
She was
well
a poet,
as a
as well as
philosopher.
a librarian, a teacher, activist. And what else? There's something else I was going to mention about that. Oh, her home and her garden are on the National Historic Register in Lynchburg, Virginia. Yeah. And it was really incredible too how when I was a resident at the Virginia Center for Contemporary Art in Amherst, Virginia, one year, we took a field trip to her place, and this was before I knew about her way
Wow.
in
Thank you
history.
for educating us. I didn't know.
Yeah,
I look her up.
it's exciting. So, that work is like a research-based work, because I'm still digging out a lot of stuff. There's an exhibit of her papers, and at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville, and I visited there, and I still need to go because I'm interested in her letters. Her stuff is really preserved. It's incredible. Mhm.
Claudia,
Uh,
Aziza?
uh-huh.
Yes, one of the things that Adjoa does so well is integrate her research into her work. And can you speak a little bit about what your process is for doing that?
Mhm. A lot of reading. There are a number of publications, books, one of them called Do Not Separate Her from Her Garden. Um, I can't remember off the top of my head the author's name, but I met her at a exhibition, and reading the books just opened up my eyes so much to her work. And she writes about Anne Spencer's eco poetics, and I had never heard that term before, but she investigates like it considers her an environmentalist, Anne Spencer,
Mm-hmm.
and talks about how her poems point to that. So the reading, talking to scholars that are really adept at her works, because honestly, my understanding of her poetry didn't come easy to me, so I have to continuously read and to understand, but it's intriguing enough to me that I really want to do that. And then traveling to the University of Virginia, her archives, she was blessed to have her works so well kept and collected, and mostly because of her granddaughter. Her granddaughter
Mm-hmm.
made it a point to make sure that her papers lived beyond her, and she has done that, which is really special, especially for people that are interested and want to know more. And finally, research into the actual plants and the flowers that she grew. I'm still only at the beginning of that. And that's going to inspire a whole nother body of work that I can't wait to get into. Because there were specific flowers that she liked and grew,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a printing press at your home? Or
No, I don't. I
no?
don't. But because I'm teaching now at UDC, and I have access to, and I'm teaching printmaking, so I have
Oh, wonderful.
access to the presses there, which is great.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And I'm really, really interested in not only the big names like the Ann Spencers, but also the local gardeners and what their story is. So I interviewed 3 local gardeners a couple of years ago, and they told me about their practice and what they grow and why they grow it and how, and it's incredible. And I want to do justice to them as well and create more pieces that relate to them. But also, I would love to do a collaborative piece with them so that they can contribute, like the thoughts that they write down about their practice, to be able to have that live in an art piece.
Are you a gardener too?
No, which is insane. I am such an appreciator, and I readily eat whatever they give me from the garden, so I'm a recipient. But I never really had the space to garden. Some people do container gardening, on their balconies or whatever. But my major focus is the art and respecting the gardening through the art.
Aziza has a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I had a question about you've taught for well over 25 years and have been a teaching artist. Can you talk about that and how you pass on what you have learned through your students?
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey. Starting off being a teaching artist where, you're going into these institutions. I've developed like these residencies. One of them was a long-standing residency with the Kennedy Center, called Telling Your Story. And I would work with students through printmaking, writing, collage. Uh, they would create their own artist book. So I did that for probably 8 years, which was a lot of fun, and teaching a variety of different processes on the lower school level. Did a lot of work with Pyramid Atlantic, teaching artist book forms in different schools, which was great because it increased my vocabulary in terms of artist books. And now with the printmaking at UDC is great because I'm working with older students and encouraging them to get their artistic voice out, which is kind of nice.
Are there printing inks that you prefer?
I like, I think it's called Chardonnay. Yeah, it's nice and creamy. It's so creamy. So
So they're
creamy.
oil-based for the
They're oil
audience,
based,
right?
they're washable. Yeah, washable oil based. And I
They're
used to use,
gorgeous colors.
yeah, I used
Yeah.
to use Akua a lot. I don't use that as much anymore because I find that it's kind of oily and it takes forever to dry. Yeah.
And Charbonnel does it a little quicker,
Yeah, I think
dries
it
a
does it a
little
little
quicker. I
quicker.
have a couple of tubes, but I haven't tried them.
Yeah, I think it does it a little quicker.
Great.
But the thing about Akua, which I really appreciated, was their brilliant colors.
Mm,
And that was enough for me for the longest.
yes, wonderful. Ooh, can anyone take your classes? Is it a community class or do you
No,
have to be enrolled in?
yeah, it's a degree-based class, but they do
Ah,
have for DC residents, for seniors, you can take it for free. Audit. Yeah, which is kind of nice, right?
yes. Thank you for telling us that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always interested
Yeah, yeah,
in interesting classes
yeah,
for those.
yeah. But I just feel that I continually evolve as an artist, right? Like I was saying earlier that I didn't consider myself a painter or even a sculptor, but it's interesting how you end up moving in certain ways and just being, flexible enough that you can flow with the course. And I'm glad I have that ability to,
And
flow
when you
with anything.
paint, do you prefer acrylics?
I like oils, but I don't like the toxicity of it. I love oils because it's so buttery. But there are ways that you can simulate that with acrylics. I haven't really gotten to that yet, but yeah, I like acrylics. Acrylics, and I think the quality of the acrylics is different from the way it was years ago. I use golden, and I'm really pleased with it. Other than I'm pleased, except for the price of it.
Oh, right. Join the comments saying it's spectacular work.
Aw,
Thank you so much. This is fantastic.
sure. Oh, thank
I
you.
see you have a question.
Hi, I wanted to ask you about the garden cloak. Um, you said, I believe, that is around a tomato
Okay.
Oh,
cage.
right. Yes.
So yeah, and it looks the first picture looked small, but then later on you showed the larger one, and so that all of that, the cardboard and the paper was able to be supported by that tomato cage.
Well, it's not cardboard. It's totally
It's
paper,
paper. Okay.
but it's paper that's been gessoed numerous times, so it's stiff.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm.
Joel, how do you decide, or like when you're coming up with a painting or a print, like the color palette? Like I know you mentioned that you were you spent some time in Nigeria, and I imagine it's kind of almost like a mix of experiences, with the subject matter being floral and the experiences of travel. But is it trial and error? Is it that you've seen a pattern somewhere that you're kind of borrowing, or how do you decide on your color palettes?
Well, with a lot of the work that I'm doing on the garden, I get the palette from the works in the garden. I take a lot of photographs, and like I'm in love with the purple of eggplant in the garden. It's a really deep, deep purple, and there's some really unusual, brilliant fluorescent colors in the garden. It's amazing. It's like a painter's dream.
I imagine like the combinations are really what makes like the eggplant purple sing is its context with another color. Do you have that in mind when you're working, or is it kind of like you looking for that right color to complement that eggplant color? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I'm often looking for the right color, but it's really right there for you to see. Yeah, for you to be able to capture that. Yeah. And then just going back to your good old color theory.
Yeah. I love your Africa series. I've been to Nigeria once,
Oh,
and I could relate to the bustle and the
hmm.
hustle and the number of little curly cues that you have in those pieces. And the cartoon one, I love both of those. And
Oh,
I'm sure you have others too from Inspired by Africa,
yeah, yeah.
which
It's
must be
funny because
glorious.
how your experiences show up in the work, and sometimes it could be a decade later or 2 decades later, but it'll emerge, and then it feels fresh again. Mm.
Yes, absolutely. Any other
Any
questions?
final questions for our artist today? This has been really quite exceptional. So happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Trying to think who we are. I just wanted to mention that we'll meet again in 2 weeks. We have Susan Stacks coming next. She is presented by Ada Rose, who's been has a gallery in Kensington, been a contributor for a while now. So we're very excited to have Susan with us in 2 weeks, and we're building out the rest of our calendar for the year as we speak. So it's been a wonderful journey seeing who our contributors bring to our program. So we're grateful for every one of you guys. So thank you so much for your continued support.
And thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jordan and Mariana.
This
This
has been
has been
great.
a
Thank you so much.
pleasure. It really has been.
It was wonderful.
And Aziza,
ho
thank you.
and hopefully you will have the recording in a few days, and that way you're there forever.
Oh, okay.
And you can always come back. So it's not like one and done.
Okay.
We love to hear back from artists too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Aziza. This was
Yes.
great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is
Thank you for that
wonderful.
beautiful letter. It was so like,
Yes.
not a thank you letter. I can't believe it.
Right. People
Well,
don't usually take the time to do,
It was so,
especially nowadays. Everything is online.
it's just,
I
I mean,
want you to know
man
how much
alive.
we
I really
appreciate
did.
it. We
God
definitely
bless.
appreciate it, and especially now.
Yes, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yes, let's band together to
Yes,
you.
absolutely.
to
And
take a
thank you
deep
for
breath.
everybody that came. I appreciate you taking the time. This is a Saturday, and I know for me, Saturday mornings, it's a lot of stuff to do. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to come to me.
We got to get the Saturday off to a good start, right? That's how I look at it.
Sounds great.
All right, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
again.
Sandra.
Right, thank you.
Hey.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.